What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the TheDailyWolves podcast. We are officially in season. I'm excited, and I'm joined here today by a Wolves contributor. He does a lot of great work covering the Minnesota Timberwolves daily. Go check out his Twitter page. He also has a code for Geek. So go tap in for all of that. How are you doing? I wanted to officially introduce you to the pod. I'm excited about this too, man.
Yeah, man, I'm excited too. I mean, the Minnesota Timberwolves have been obviously not the talk of the NBA for a long time. Recently, they've obviously become they're a contender now. They're a good team. They went to the West Finals last year, so it's awesome to be able to dive into a team and really analyze it, man. Because like I said, they got an exciting player in Anthony Edwards, who I think he's one of the next stars in the league when they pass the torch with guys like Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic. So keeping these young guys afloat, right, to the next generation. But man, it's been fun. It's been a blast. And now we have obviously the cat trade, which we'll get to in a little bit. So it's been busy over here in Minnesota. The atmosphere is incredible in Minnesota right now. It's something that they desperately needed. I feel kind of like Minnesota and Sacramento were in the same spot where both stadiums kind of, the Kings started lighting the beam. They started getting energy back in the building, and that same thing happened over in Minnesota. So it was cool to see it kind of come back and see the city to come together, man. But yeah, before we get into it, like you said, man, my name's Evan. I cover the Daily Wolves in Minnesota. So if you want to give us a follow, man, if you want to see a journey, whether you're just a fan of Anthony Edwards solo or you just enjoy, any of the other guys like Julius Randle, Donte, DiVincenzo, or maybe you're just a Minnesota Timberwolves fan or interested, you can follow me on Twitter at @TheDailyWolves. I'm also on TikTok there at @TheDailyWolves, and we're on Instagram too, man, at @TheDailyWolves.
All of his links will be in the description box below. Appreciate that introduction from Evan. This is going to be a very fun pod. Without further ado, let's get into it. So,
do it.
I got to tell you this, right? Yeah. I have been watching the Wolves for quite some time now. I do content on all 30 teams. And this Wolves team specifically with Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns gave you guys like such a great playoff run last year. There were a lot of things to criticize about the lineups every now and then and how Cat and also Anthony Edwards performed. But I thought that they gave them the best push this franchise has seen for quite some time. And then Cat out of nowhere late at night is traded for Julius Randle. I got to get your instant reactions to that and what that means for the Wolves in 2025 and also moving forward.
Yeah, so initial reactions is it was a shock because nobody saw it coming, not even reporters, nobody that covers the team. I think we all knew the Cat trade was coming, so it was just going to happen, right? It was probably going to happen at the next year, right, in the offseason. Karl-Anthony Towns is on a contract that is going to be paying him, $46 million this year. It's going to be going up and up and up, and he's still on contract for multiple years. Minnesota has Rudy Gobert as well on a big max deal. They have Anthony Edwards, which that contract just kicked in on Anthony Edwards' new super max contract. And then, of course, Jaden McDaniels got signed on a big contract where he's making over $20 million a year. Naz Reid on a bigger contract. So all the young guys finally are off their rookie contracts. And what that meant is Karl-Anthony Towns was just a ticking time bomb of getting traded. Now, why Cat was going to get traded, why we aren't surprised in Minnesota, is because Rudy Gobert was not going to get moved after you traded for him, one. Two, who's trading and offering a lot for Rudy Gobert, even though, yes, he won Defensive Player of the Year, but Cat's a younger player. He's going to get more value, and it was just one of those things that it just was going to happen. They needed to make a move, and it was going to be Rudy, Cat, and you're not trading the young guys, right? You're not trading Jaden McDaniels or Naz Reid. You're not trading the future. So it's like Cat was going to get traded. So we were shocked at the timing in Minnesota, but we weren't shocked that he got traded. I don't know if you could have got a better package. I think the package they got back is a package that could work out for New York. It could work out for Minnesota as well. So I think both teams are, they're struggling a little bit here to start the season. You're seeing that, but that's normal. It's going to take some time for Cat to really fit in with New York and them to get back to it. And then it's going to take time for Julius and Donte to come in Minnesota and all the team to mesh together.
I like what you said because the Cat trade has been something that has been talked about for years now. Mainly because he signed like a dramatic super max contract extension. So it was definitely in talks. I just feel like for me as an outsider, right?
Yeah.
Watching the ins and outs of this team and seeing the value that he provided, I thought that, okay, after this large playoff run, they would give it one more year and then pull the trigger. I felt like the continuity of things were going. And even after the playoffs had ended, I kept saying, if they just went to the Karl Anthony Towns and Gobert two-man game more with Anthony Edwards one pass away. I thought that was a huge staple when they had gone to it in the playoffs, and it worked well to basically minimize Gobert as a offensive liability in spots. But they officially make the trade. They get Julius Randle on the team. Me personally, I'll give you my thoughts on him real quick. Julius Randle has been one of the most confusing players in the NBA because he has all NBA level seasons, but I feel like in terms of the playoffs and actually like performing and processing elite defense as well, I think sometimes he struggles. But in Minnesota, I said I don't think the drop off is going to be significant during the regular season. The playoffs are really where my questions lie with him. So far, the rebounding has been a good spot for him. I don't think he's a positive defender as much. And the fit with Gobert, I think, is a bit questionable. What did you think Julius Randle could bring to the Wolves? And were you a fan of having him back over Karl Anthony Towns?
I don't think Julius is going to be as good of a fit for the Minnesota Timberwolves right now as Karl Anthony Towns would have been, because we saw it. Timberwolves went to the West Finals. They were amazing. They hung their hats on defense last year, and Julius, like you said, defense, it's not there. And so Cat, the first thing I thought is there's going to be a downgrade on the defensive end. There probably will be an upgrade on certain things like playmaking, which Julius has brought to Minnesota. But I knew that the thing what I was most excited about for Julius to come to Minnesota was the toughness he plays with. I think that's something that Minnesota needed. I think that's something that Anthony Edwards feeds off of. Part of the reason I think Anthony Edwards developed into just such a confident, such a tough player, and is probably because of Patrick Beverley. When he was here in Minnesota,
absolutely
changed Anthony Edwards, and it brought a swagger to the team that they didn't have. And so bringing a guy, I think the Minnesota Timberwolves looked at, hey, we can bring in a guy with toughness who's Ant will feed off of, and they'll get along. And then getting a guy like Donte as well, who's tough, who's a dog, bring him in here. I think they wanted to fit. They felt like that would fit in the toughness and grit. That's what they wanted to surround Ant around. And I think the trade is more so about how do you surround Anthony Edwards with and develop him more so than, hey, this is going to be our team when we're in our championship window. I think with the trade, what you did is you decided, instead of, I feel like if you run it back with Cat, you're saying, okay, we're going for it all. We're going for the title right now. But I felt like after the trade, it's, hey, let's take one step back. Randall's probably not going to be with us. His contract's going to be out this year. After this year, he's going to be a player option. Minnesota probably trades him, to be honest with you. I think he's temporary here. I do not think he's going to be there in the window when they're contending. And it's saying we have Donte under contract for multiple years. He's going to be in there in the window. But again, it's how do we put guys around Ant to just develop him as fast as possible. And then we can go out, trade for something who's actually going to, fit the team, or maybe have money to spend, free up the cap space. And, Minnesota becomes an attractive destination. We have never said that before, but with players like Anthony Edwards, having a veteran like Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley there, Jaden, all these players, there's going to be a star that probably would want to come play for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I think you hit it right on the head, Evan, the development of Anthony Edwards. First off, the growth of him from year by year by year has been very impressive to watch. Yeah. You already mentioned the impact that we saw Patrick give him, but another huge guard to me has to be Ricky Rubio. Like the leadership and all that he brought to the team. Anthony Edwards literally said that he felt like he was the guard whisperer, like he was one of the best overall role models for him, and I feel like that played a huge part in his overall development. And with Cat gone, to me, this is really solidifying that Anthony Edwards, this is your team. You are going to be the face. You are going to be the vocal and action guy for this team. And I think the biggest way he's shown it so far in these games I watched has to be on the court. I mean, elevating his shot diet to be more three-pointer based, having the confidence in his game to shoot over 10 threes a game, pretty much like 12 threes a game currently on elite splits. It's still super early, so how this will go for the entire season is, very interesting. But the fact that he's doing it and understanding, hey, with us losing a very positive space in Karl Anthony Towns, I need to be that overall difference, speaks volumes to his growth and his real sense of maturity as a player.
It's crazy because you lose Cat, and what we thought in Minnesota was, hey, your three-point volume is going to go down. You're losing a guy who shoots, who's a career 40% shooter in Cat. So we thought our 3-point volume would go down. We thought our 3-point effectiveness as a team would go down. And it's been the opposite. We've actually shot as many threes this year as a team as the Boston Celtics did last year. It's crazy how different it's been. Yeah, we lost Cat, but Anthony Edwards decided to change, 5 or 6 attempts a game. And like you said, he's brought it up to nearly 12 attempts a game, making 5.6 threes a game, shooting 48% from 3. Incredible. He's on pace right now to beat Steph Curry's best shooting season of all time and shoot the most 3-pointers in NBA history and makes, which is actually crazy. Like you said, small sample size. So it's probably not going to happen because Steph Curry's one of a kind, but it's insane. We didn't expect to see this. Nobody in Minnesota did. We thought Ant's development, it was still a few years away. I think the 3-point shooting, again, the floor opens up without Cat being there, and now Ant knows in his head it's his team. He can take the shots, like you said. But I think a big part about Anthony Edwards taking the 3 ball this year is what he took away from Team USA. I think that was a massive thing for Anthony Edwards. I think it changed everything. He talked about how he learned the most from Steph Curry in Team USA. Watching him shoot, he learned the most from Steph Curry. Being off the ball, how to move off the ball and take his game to the next level, how all those little things are important, and to shoot and to be a really good catch and shoot player. And then he learned things from LeBron, like how to close games, how LeBron prepares, the way that Kevin Durant shoots, how hard Durant works. He took all these little things from these 3 great players and what he learned from Team USA. And then he had a guy like Draymond Green who pulled him aside over when he was playing in Team USA and said, don't be a moment guy. You know what I mean? Don't be a guy who just goes to the West Finals once. And Anthony Edwards has talked about how he took that to heart this season, how he remembers that chat with Draymond. He told Draymond, I don't want to be that one-time guy. I don't want to have my career just be, I only made it to the West Finals once or made it to the playoffs this far once. He wants to be a consistent guy. And I think his aggression, I've never seen him so aggressive right now. The way he's playing basketball, and the game slowed down for him too. That's
absolutely fearless.
And just watching him, how he plays, he doesn't move as quick anymore and out of control. He's slowing down now, and he'll wait for the defender to make a mistake, and he'll like Euro step now, and he'll kind of like pause for a second, and then he'll do something. It's like he's waiting for the defender. He used to not do that. He used to just be like, I'm just going to score and go through people. Now he's starting to see the game at a different level. It's slowing down for him, and people like he's not being rushed by defenders or opponents. I'm starting to see Ant's development from the 3-point, and then how to just consistently show up and get his. And it's crazy to watch it because it's just like, I haven't seen a player like this in Minnesota, like ever, probably.
That is what makes him so special. Because again, all those things, like he holds himself to such a high level and he holds himself accountable. Because again, taking all of these growth areas from Steph Curry, LeBron James, KD, and then even a player like Draymond Green to, for him to think that he's not above that, right? Even in his post games saying our defense to start games has been not great. We can definitely defend, but sometimes I just don't have it. It starts with me. That accountability piece makes me feel like you can really rely on him, because on top of all this, he's also very durable and plays a ton of games. He's like the perfect type of franchise guy you want to build around, and he's not even 25 years old yet. So I think the growth of him is going to be there, and so far he's playing at an insane level. I mean, right now the Wolves, they're starting a 9-game overall sample size. They are 5th in points per possession. That's 118.6 points per possession. The Timberwolves are, and a lot of people thought early on the offensive fit with Anthony Edwards, Randle, and Gobert will be hard, but Ant, because of his shooting, is giving Randle the runway to do what he can do. He's finding ways to complement other players around him, even though he's the best player on his team. And that really speaks volumes to his growth again as a player. Still. Yeah,
I think we all thought the same thing. I thought it for sure myself. How are Randle and Gobert going to fit? It's going to be clunky. Randle's known for being a ball hog. He's going to come here. Anthony Edwards is also sometimes known for being a ball hog. But with Anthony Edwards, you can live with it more because he's just that good, right? He's a franchise player. You're not going to argue when SGA, Anthony Edwards, Luka Doncic are taking your final shots, right? But so we were worried about that. Can, Julius Randle come into Minnesota and, kind of accept that this is Anthony Edwards' team? I had heard from some people, I don't know how true it is, that in New York, it was always like, is it his team? Because he had it before Jalen Brunson was there, and then it was kind of whose team was it? So with Minnesota, Randle and him hit it off right away. They're really close. They're becoming really good friends, which is awesome, and they play really well together. And the way that Randle became a facilitator in Minnesota, he's playing so unselfish.
Huge.
It's been huge, and that's what, when you've elaborated on why their offense is so good, it's because Randle's decided, this is my role, and this is what's asked of me. I need to be a facilitator, and everything, I'll do all the other stuff, and that's why they're succeeding on the offensive end, because Randle was willing to move over and accept that this is Ant's team. He's come out in different post-game things and mentioned, hey, this is Anthony Edwards' team, and that this kid is special. I think sometimes too, with vets and different players in the NBA, no matter how high of a vet you are, when you see somebody that's like a prodigy or something that's so special in practice, I think you understand, oh, this is what the people are talking about. This is why he's so sought after. People talk about him potentially being a face of the NBA or the next face. They start to see, because I've heard multiple vets. Beverly said it. Kat said it. Kyle Conley. That's the reason Mike Conley signed an extension to stay in Minnesota, because he said that there's something special about that kid. And I think when players see that, it doesn't matter what you think. It's, yeah, I'll move over, because that kid, he can win me a ring. Like, he's special. He's something different. I haven't played with a player like him.
No, listen, undoubtedly, man. Like he is the difference for Minnesota. I gotta say, for me, the other part of this trade, I think, is still early, of course. But Donte DiVincenzo, compared to the year he had last year, I don't think he's really approximated that value to the same degree. But it's a long season. Dead-eye shooters go through these moments where the shots just aren't overall falling. But you're still seeing just the impact of having him on the floor and how he really opens up the game for your other two best players. What have you seen from Donte, and what were your expectations getting him a part of this trade as well?
So if the trade goes down and we don't have Donte in the trade, I think it's an absolute awful trade. I think it's like down there is a D-. Like, it's a horrible trade for me. I think Donte was, because we got Donte, I was willing to say, like, I was willing to accept the trade, basically. I think Minnesota fans, I think we were all ecstatic to get Donte. I think the basketball fan knows what Donte was in New York, how good he was for New York last year, what he does. Being a career, shooter from three at above 40% is amazing. At the volume Donte DiVincenzo shoots at it. And I think it's something that, yes, you lost Cat shooting, but I knew that Donte coming would help on the three-point shooting. Obviously, this is before I even knew Anthony Edwards was going to take it to a next level. But Donte is shooting, 8 threes a game or so right now, 9 threes. Anthony Edwards is out here shooting 12 a game. It's crazy how much volume he's added. And he's shooting in the last 5 games here now. Donte DiVincenzo has really taken his game to another level that I've seen. He's starting to get comfortable. Before, I thought he looked a little bit uncomfortable, like, where do I fit? What do they want me to do? Just normal stuff. Anybody fitting with a new team, right? He looked like the guy that was going to school on his first day. And I think he's learning how to fit with the team so well. I think he's doing all the little things. He's getting assists. Tonight, he's rebounding. Over the last 5 games, like I said, Donte's back up to almost 15 points a game. I think he's at 14 points. And then he's shooting 41% from three in the last 5 games. So on 10 threes a game. So he's starting to go back to New York Donte. And now you're starting to see Donte do all the other things. Like I said, out here rebounding, out here getting assists. He's playing. He was also asked coming into Minnesota, which I don't know if he expected. He was asked to play backup point guard. We all thought in Minnesota, Rob Dillingham was going to be the guy. We had him penciled in for 23, 25 minutes a game. You draft him number 8 overall. And then I think the Timberwolves at the time didn't even know that they were going to make the Cat trade. They didn't know it was going to come up. So they were like, we're going to run with Rob Dillingham. When the trade goes down, Minnesota, I still thought we're going to run with Rob. And we found out that they believe Donte can play make and be a backup point guard, which is very interesting. So I think Dante's being asked to do a lot more too than he was in New York to that. I know he did some ball handling, but I just feel Dante's starting to really, understand his role and become comfortable in it. And it's been nice to see him come along. He's just such a good player. And then on the contract, it's one of the steals of the NBA. He's getting paid $10 or $11 million a year, and you have him under control for the next 3 seasons. It's one of the best contracts in the NBA, because Donte DiVincenzo, he's a $20 million player for sure.
Undoubtedly. We've seen overpaid players before, but the way that Donte plays is key. It's still early, but again, we would both agree that like this isn't the best Donte still. And even with that, he's still a +10 to the lineups that he overall impacts. Once those shots really begin to fall, like I can't wait to see the creativity Coach Finch can use with him, because again, there's so many actions where you could put Gobert off the ball where Dante's curling up and then lanes are overall created. Like there's many different ways to use him. You could do guard to guard screens where Anthony Edwards has the ball with Donte. You have to respect Donte, so now Ant can have a bigger lane. There's ways. So I can't wait to see the growth and development of that. But the other segment I want to get to, I am a Warriors fan, but outside of that, one of the players I've always supported when he gets a lot of hate is Rudy Gobert. And I know there's like a lot of clips where he gets dunked on, he misses a wide open layup or whatever it is. But I think unequivocally, the impact Rudy Gobert brings to the floor of the Minnesota Timberwolves when he's on the floor, defensively, they are always top 5 or top 10. Last year, they were the #1 ranked defense in the league with Rudy Gobert. I think to your point, it's such a hard mix because while he does bring that much overall, impact defensively, offensively, he leaves a lot to be desired. Also, he's making a ton of money, so teams can't openly trade for him even if they wanted him to. But I think that his impact defensively is a huge part of why people still view this team as a serious team that can go far in the playoffs. Making that work around him is interesting with the Randle fit, but what are your thoughts about Gobert overall since you've had him, and what are your expectations for him this year?
So Gobert, the first season was here, it was not a good time in Minnesota. It was all over the place. It was clunky, but we also had Cat hurt a lot of the season, and we never got to really see them. They only played like 20 games or so together in that season, and then Cat came back for the playoffs. It just wasn't it. But then last year, Rudy Gobert and Cat worked really good together. Rudy became the Defensive Player of the Year again, which I didn't see coming. Obviously, a big man coming over the age of 30. It's tough sometimes. That's usually when you start seeing a decline in a big man. But Rudy decided to take it to a new level, and I got to see Rudy Gobert playing insane defense last year. I got to see what the Utah people told me of every time. In Minnesota, we call them neverminds, and what those are things that don't show up on the stat sheet. It means it's not a block, but they were going to drive in the lane, they were going to shoot, but then Rudy Gobert's there, and instead the defender goes never mind in his head and turns around and kicks it out, or panics or something, or turns it over because they think Rudy Gobert might block it. So Rudy Gobert does all these little things that don't show up to the NBA, and things that I even didn't know as a fan watching it. I didn't realize how much Rudy Gobert actually did until I watched him on a nightly basis. He sets picks better than anybody in the NBA, basically. He's fantastic. He's the way he sets angles, the way he does things with his body, the way he plays defense, and also angles his body is next level. It's these little things of anticipation why he's so good. He's a fantastic rebounder as well, obviously. And then I think he's so underrated in so many categories. I think Rudy Gobert is just he's like a walking top 10 defense, just alone on a team. So I just think Rudy Gobert, it's been amazing to see him. Last year, he was okay, like not the best offensively, as you know. But what's been crazy in Minnesota is Rudy Gobert. This year, I would say his defense, obviously it's not all or it's really good, right? It's not like what it was last year. But the surprising thing about Gobert this year is he actually is playing better offensively with Donte and Randle, because Randle's a playmaker and Donte has an instant connection with Rudy Gobert. They are hitting the lob threat over and over, and that's the difference between this team and last year. Is this team is consistently now hitting Rudy Gobert. Last year, only Mike Conley hit him, and maybe once in a while Kyle Anderson. This year, it's just Donte, Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards has figured it out, and Rudy Gobert is starting to really come into his own. And we didn't have the lob threat really in Minnesota. So his offensive game, it looks like it's starting to open up. So don't be surprised if you start seeing Rudy Gobert averaging more points this year. Defense will take a little dip because it's hard to replicate that. And like I said, he's older. But yeah, he's probably not going to win any more Defensive Player of the Year when Victor Wembanyama is a healthy man.
Man, I have to 100% agree. Yeah. And so far, I think even the numbers from this season back it up a little bit. Ironically, when Gobert is not on the floor, their defense falls to the third worst in the league, 125. The boost of having Naz Reid in those spots does make you a better team offensively, but I kept saying this, and this is why the trade was a bit weird to me, because in the playoffs, when you have to like choose what you prioritize, the floor and the ceiling of this team to me has always been what they do defensively, whereas Anthony Edwards is a star player that can get you through those spurts offensively. We talk about Randle a lot, but I think the other key role player we're not really mentioning enough of to me has to be Jaden McDaniels. I have been on his island for like 4 years now, and I'm hoping that this still is the year where he takes that offensive leap. I think that is really, really needed to fully cement this team as a real playoff contender. How have you felt about his growth so far this season? Is there more you want to see from him?
Yeah, Jaden's been probably one of the most disappointing players actually for the Timberwolves this year. It's pretty much surprised all of us. I think we all expected Jaden to take a leap. We heard good things in the offseason. Jaden, he showed flashes of it over the last year of being, having offensive upside. He had really good games in the playoffs. I mean, he had multiple games above 20 points in the playoffs. He had a really good series against Phoenix. I think Jaden,
amazing at closeouts in that Phoenix series, by the way. Just got to note that real quick.
Yeah, amazing. And he got, he's an all NBA defender last year. Finally made one of the, 3 teams there. And I think Jaden finally signs his contract. You obviously, when you lose Cat, you think Jaden's he's going to get more shots now. So we really thought it was lining up for Jaden to take a bigger role on his team. But so far, he's had issues staying out of foul trouble. Again, it's been killing him because he can't stay on the court. He's been hesitant to shoot. I think he's in his head. I think Jaden McDaniels all of his talent's there. It's a lot of mental stuff going on with him right now. He needs to just be a confident guy, and right now he's just not confident. He's been playing better over the last few games, but we need Jaden to step up. Like you said, if Jaden McDaniels can take a step, if he became a 15 points a game scorer, I mean, Minnesota is really good. And if he could take it up even a little bit more, I mean, if you take it to 17, 18 points a game, I mean, you're looking at Minnesota as definitely, they're probably going to the West Finals. If I think that's how much of a game changer Jaden McDaniels is when he plays well for Minnesota, is he has that upside to really take them to a completely different level, and that's because he's a two-way player.
1000% could not agree more, because again, in the playoffs, when he was putting up 20 points, this team felt damn near unbeatable. And it's like the defense is one thing, but the main thing I want to see from him is just confidence and comfortability. When you catch the ball, don't hesitate, don't hitch, just go into the shot or make a quick decision. The hesitation is what makes defenses feel like they cannot guard him, which makes it a lot harder when you have Gobert and also Julius Randle on the floor. You want to maximize every single position on the floor. So him adding more positivity on offense is a huge part of making this whole puzzle piece work. So that's fair to say. As we transition towards the end of this pod, I do want to ask you, for the season, the Western Conference has been so weird. A lot of teams that people thought would be good haven't been great to start, but it's a super duper long season. Where do you think Minnesota can fit in the Western Conference? And more importantly, what do you think they need to do overall to get there? Is it more Rob Dillingham overall minutes? What do you want to see from this team?
Yeah, I think as the season goes on, I think Minnesota's going to figure it out. I think they have so much talent. They're too good, and they have too good of a coach to not figure it out. And they have players that haven't been playing that well on the defensive end that usually play well, and they haven't been consistent. So I think you're going to see Minnesota really turn it around. Anthony Edwards is that good too, where he can single-handedly just carry a team. I think Rob Dillingham will play. I think he's going to eventually play here. I think right now our coach doesn't necessarily want to play Rob this year. I think he thinks he likes his rotation right now, but I think Rob is going to force himself into the lineup. I think Mike Conley looks really old right now, and he looks like he's kind of fading off, and there's, he might be able to turn it around, but he doesn't look like the same Mike Conley we've had. And there's nothing wrong with that. Mike Conley's had a fantastic career. Obviously he's an older player, and it's going to happen at some point, but if he keeps playing that way, Rob's going to get minutes, because every time Rob has touched the floor, which has been minimal, he's been solid, and he's an offensive threat. I think one of my hot takes before I get into where they're going to finish is I think the starting lineup, this got elaborated on a guy who covers the Timberwolves, but I was thinking the same thing. His name's Dane Moore, and I was listening to his podcast. Shout out to Dane, love him. But he said he thinks the Timberwolves are going to change the starting lineup sometime. It's coming. And they were talking about it, and they think it's going to be Jaden or Mike. And I think it's going to be
probably Mike.
I think it's going to be Mike, because you don't probably take Jaden out because, again, what he's making, politics matter, and he's making more money now, and they do, whether or not people believe it. Also, a guy who struggled with his confidence, you don't take him out and do that to a player, a young kid. So, and keep the size there with Jaden. So I think Donte DiVincenzo is going to move into the starting lineup. He's been fantastic, and he's just every night. He doesn't make mistakes. He does all the dirty work. He comes out every night and plays hard 100% of the time. I think it's contagious. I think he started off with, hey, we're only going to give him 20 minutes a night. Now he's at 28, 30. He's increasing his minutes. And the pattern I see is Donte DiVincenzo is going to be into the Minnesota Timberwolves starting lineup. And I think once that happens, they're going to take off. I think that they need a change up there at the top. And, Mike can run with the second unit. I think that would be a lot better for Mike, too. Because right now he's getting smoked on the defensive end, too. He just looks old and slow. And, again, shout out to Mike. Fantastic career. But sometimes it is what it is, right? But where they're going to finish, I think Minnesota can finish probably number 4 in the West this year. I think, again, it's hard when you have a new team. It's going to take time for it to mesh. So they're probably I have them finishing number 4. I think I have OKC firmly at number 1. I think they're above everyone in the West right now, and I think there's a gap between them. Number 2, I probably have Dallas sitting there right now, kind of in their own tier. And then number 3 and 4, I think it's kind of interchangeable of Minnesota, Denver, teams like that, maybe Golden State, Memphis. I think they're all in that same who's going to take it. And so I think, 1 and 2 are kind of solidified for me in the West. And then 3, 4, 5 here are kind of like flopping all over the place. I think at the end, when you look at the standings, they're going to be neck and neck from the 3 seed to the 5 seed. I think it's going to be just a few games. I think it's going to be a bloodbath, man.
Yeah. I think the West has already been that, and I gotta say, these starts, a lot of teams are trying to find their overall continuity. The teams at the top right now are mainly teams that haven't had dramatic roster changes within OKC. Yep. My team, Golden State. So it takes time, but it's a super long season. These adjustments will happen for all of these teams. I gotta say, the reason why I still have the Wolves as a top 5 seed is mainly because Anthony Edwards is playing the most improved version of himself. I think as the season progresses, the playmaking is going to get better. I think the lineup change also thrust him more into a point forward initiator role with Donte as the off-ball combo guard, which, would be working more on trying to, quick start the overall development to his game. And I also think defensively, it'll make you a lot better without Mike Conley. Again, 100%. He's a good savvy player, but defensively with Donte, he's a lot more youthful in that way. And I just think the connection with Gobert also being there is a huge part of that. So I could see that. But I think as long as you have Gobert as your floor guy, Naz Reid is easily one of the best backup bigs in the NBA. Yeah. I think in that role, he specializes in it. I know a lot of people want to put Gobert on the bench and have Naz Reid. But I'm like, Naz Reid in the backup role is like a star. If you ask more of him, I think more of his flaws show. So to me, this is why I think they can still be a top 5 seed. I can agree with you there. But things are going to fluctuate. I mean, right now, the Suns have been on fire as well. There's a lot going on in the West, right? So we got to see exactly how these things shift and overall pivot. But I will be monitoring this team very, very thoroughly. I do want to go to some more games this season because that playoff game I went to, the atmosphere was crazy, even though they lost by a kajillion points. But yeah, man, I'm excited. I do want to ask you, last but not least, how are you enjoying the NBA season so far, just as a fan watching everything?
I think it's exciting right now. I think it's competitive. I think the East is kind of a little bit lackadaisical in the Eastern Conference, but I think the West has been awesome. And usually the East has been fantastic too. I think the East has been just injury after injury right now, so I think that's what's hurting them. I mean, obviously, Philly, we were excited to see Joel Embiid and Paul George play together with Tyrese Maxey. I thought that would be a really good three-way tandem. And that's been obviously disappointing to see how that's been going on. And then obviously Milwaukee did not see that coming as well, their struggles, which is interesting. So, but I think the West has been awesome, man. It's been awesome. I think the Clippers have been a fun team to watch, to follow. I think they play hard every night. Norman Powell's having his best season ever so far. James Harden's playing good with them. I think the Clippers are a really tough team. Getting John Morant back in the league is awesome because obviously John Morant is one of the most exciting young players. He's so fun to watch, athletic freak, right? And so getting John back is fun for Memphis. And then obviously LA with JJ Redick, man, getting him, I think it's a game changer for the Lakers as you're seeing. And Anthony Davis is playing at an MVP level. I mean, crazy, man. So I think the West has just been, Golden State's been awesome. They've been playing really good right now. Steph Curry. Denver's still good. Man, the whole West has been pretty fun. Like Wemby, the Spurs, and then obviously Phoenix. Phoenix has been on fire. I forgot to mention them earlier. I don't know why I forgot them, but they're going to be in that tandem I was talking about with Minnesota too. Yep. They're very good. Tyus Jones was an insanely important add. It's a game changer. When they got Tyus, they became one of the, not the team that's just barely getting to the playoffs. They became a playoff team, like a lock. Like I think Tyus Jones is that good of a player.
And Coach Bell will like the system in place for them to like better maximize both ends of the floor. Yeah.
And they hit with Ryan Dunn, man. Ryan Dunn's probably the steal right now in the NBA draft, and he's huge. They didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming. Bad shooter in college, like 20%, low 20s from three.
And has knocked him down in the NBA. That's unheard of almost.
Insane, man. So like all that combined, I think I've liked to see the whole NBA has been fun this year, but definitely the West. That's where it's been fun and competitive every night. I feel like it's been a bloodbath through the first 9 teams, the top 9 seeds, I guess I could say.
Dope. Well, happy to hear that. First of all, I want to say shout out to Evan. We have been workshopping this day. I'm happy that we were able to come together. I don't know Evan. Evan doesn't really know me, but we linked up, and I definitely want to keep in touch with you because, again, I watch a lot of hoops. I really appreciate your team and how you talk about them. I have a ton of respect because this industry of keeping up with the team night after night after night, having daily updates, daily content, it's hard. It's a very short bubble to be in sometimes. So shout out to you and your persistency. All of his links will be in the description box below. This was a great overall, concise conversation about the Minnesota Timberwolves. Big shout out to you, man, for real. I appreciate it.
I appreciate that, man. And to all your followers, just in case you want to use it, you can use my SeatGeek code. It is just TheDailyWolves, all one word. He'll put it down there for you, but you'll get $20 off your first purchase of $50 or more on SeatGeek. I mean, just use it for anything, man. Concerts, anything. If that's in town or you're trying to go to any sports game, you can just use that promo code, and hopefully that helps some people out here.
Absolutely, man. Go tap it with that code. But we are going to get out of here. Appreciate Evan for hopping on the pod this time around. We're back with the podcast on Tuesdays and Saturdays, y'all. So make sure to tap in with all those things. But appreciate basketball. That's all I got to say. Have a good one, people. Peace out.
Peace.